Hello and welcome to Ask Ron, where Ron answers our Closers Club questions each and every week. I'm Addo. Of course, I got Ron here. How you doing today, Ron?
I'm great, man. I'm great.
Good. Well, if you have any questions you'd like to ask Ron, make sure you're a Closers Club member. You can get all the details about the membership at reclosersclub.com. You can also email your questions to ask@ronlegrand.com if you prefer that route.
Let me add to that. In case you're watching and you're a Gold Club member and you haven't been, if somebody can't contacted you on Closers Club, if you're a Gold Club member, you're a Closers Club member now. Okay, so we just switched it over. We're in the process of that. It takes us a little while, so many of them. But if you're still a Gold member and you haven't been contacted, you might want to call the office and tell them to get you upgraded. In fact, it's even cheaper. Your first level is only $59 a month instead of the $99, and we've added comps to it. You can now pull comps at the $59 level. So, I mean, really, what a bargain! Best bargain in real estate today.
Yes, sir. First question from Tony and Angie. Do you think small multifamily is still the best transition point into commercial investing, or are there other sectors you'd prioritize in today's environment?
Well, first of all, Tony and Angie have been very loyal. Every week we get a question. We can count on them. So thank you for that. Yeah, and the answer is, yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea at all, because small multifamilies are a lot easier to buy than any commercial property. You're still under the residential rules. If you ever want to sell it and cash out of it, you got funding for that in the residential realm, not in the commercial realm, which means little or no down payment if somebody's going to live in it. And you know, I've had quite a few fourplexes in my life. The income is good as long as the numbers make sense, guys. Numbers got to make sense. I've had some even in war zones, which I don't suggest you do. So I don't have any problem with small multifamilies, the duplexes, fourplex, because you're going to get some good cash flow out of them. Just one warning: don't spend all the cash flow. That's the mistake a lot of investors make, especially in the beginning days. You got to understand that sooner or later that property is going to want some of that money back. And if you're not prepared for it, that's when you start getting in trouble. You have to come out of pocket to fix something or pay for a payment, and you got vacancies or something like that. And then the worst thing about these is that you got to do the repairs. Okay, you can't pass the repairs onto the tenants, which is why I stick with single family. I've had many small multi properties, and honestly, I can't say I'd go out and do any of them over again. But it doesn't hurt to start there, and it doesn't hurt to learn something about property management as well along the way. Well, you'll discover that lease options, where they pay where they do the repairs and put up big deposits, are going to be a lot better than in fourplexes. Okay, you're giving all of that up. You go buy a fourplex, you're not going to get a big deposit to put somebody in there, and got 4 tenants to manage. And now when you get down in the lower income, that's where you're really gonna, that's where all the pain is, down in the low income properties. Good cash flow on them, but again, I don't know if it's worth it or not, guys, to be honest, because the time you put into a fourplex, you could buy 2 or 3 different houses and make a lot more money, in my humble opinion. But I don't see anything wrong with them. You know, you probably ought to try a lot of stuff on your own, regardless of what I say or anybody else says, and pretty soon, give yourself a couple of years now, and you'll light on what you like doing the best. Some people like mobile homes. I hate mobile homes. I hate wobbly boxes, okay? I don't mind owning the park, but I don't want to own the trailers, okay? I'm done with that as well. They're all crap. They're all junk, and they depreciate fast, and I don't want anything to do with them. I don't care if they're cash flow or not, but then again, there's other people that specialize in them, so, you know, that's just me.
Yeah. Second question from Tony. What operational or mindset shift surprises residential investors when they move into commercial properties?
What mind shift change is that when you go, and by the way, you don't go from residential to commercial. There's no reason you don't do both of them. Okay, I do both of them. Especially when you're systemized, like I know you are. Residential becomes very easy if you keep the system working. And the biggest thing is you got to keep generating the leads. So you don't abandon residential. Never abandon what you've already built and what cash flow you already got just to go into commercial, hoping it's going to work out okay. You do them both, and the mindset is when you get into commercial, you're going to be dealing with bigger numbers. And if you're used to using small numbers, that's going to be a mind shift that you're going to have to get through. But again, you know that I teach, stay out of the risk. We don't do risk. We don't guarantee debt. Guaranteed debt is what I hope nobody does listening to these calls right now, because that's the biggest mistake you can make, is guaranteeing debt. When you guarantee debt, the lenders have got you. You're a slave to them. You don't guarantee debt, there's no way anybody can hurt you. The worst they can do is take away an asset that didn't work out for you. And when you don't guarantee the debt, nobody can come after you to collect the debt. I preach and preach and preach and preach that. Adol's sitting back here. He's heard it about 100 times now, and he's probably going to hear it another 100 times. So there's a lot more to learn in commercial. There's a lot more due diligence. There's a lot more money you have to put out to do the due diligence to get the property bought. But if you come to my commercial boot camp coming up here on the 10th of June, I'll show you how to do all that without using your money, and certainly without using your credit. In fact, you'll be talking to Mark Mostek, who is my partner on doing commercial deals with people that we work with that have been to training and want to get into my commercial mastermind group. They don't use money, I won't let them. And they don't guarantee debt, I won't let them. And yet I'll show you, I've done 35 commercial deals with students, which I split the profit with, 35 of them all over the country, and I'm always looking for more. So come see me at commercial. Contact us. We got a great deal going on right now. It's not very expensive. In fact, it's about a third of what it was when I started teaching it a few years ago. And then I'll open that whole world up for you. That's the reason to come to the boot camp. I'll go through everything you need to know to get out there and start doing commercial properties. And if you want to work with me, you can as well. Yeah, and I hope you do.
We have one coming up in June 10th, right?
June 10th.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Right here in Jacksonville.
All right, next question from Kevin. He's looking for a tenant buyer for his house. Mm-hmm. He wants to know how he discloses to the potential buyer that the house has a mortgage with a due on sale clause, meaning the lender could foreclose if they wanted to, without scaring away my potential buyer.
Kevin, you must be a thinker brain. First of all, you don't need to worry about that. We don't talk about the underlying loans with our buyers, period, all right? When they do the lease purchase, the attorney may or may not disclose that, but it's certainly going to be in the documents. And honestly, you're worrying about stuff that don't matter, okay? Your tenant buyer don't care how much you owe. They only care how much they owe you and what's the payment. And that's it. Quit worrying about stuff like that. You don't have to disclose that. In fact, you can talk yourself right out of a deal real easy. If you keep your mouth shut, you'll get more money. You'll make more deals. We don't answer questions that haven't been asked. Shut the hell up. That's the answer to that question. And don't worry about that kind of stuff, because you can fix it a long way. If it comes up, the attorney's going to disclose it anyway, most likely, and it doesn't matter. The tenant buyer that's not going to drive a tenant buyer off. That's not going to scare them away. So, I mean, get out there and do a few of these things, and you'll see that everything you're worrying about is a waste of energy.
All right, Robert from Oregon. I'm having problems with a person getting them to agree with my helping them and agreeing to terms. Any suggestions?
I don't know what you just said.
Sorry. Robert from Oregon.
Yeah.
He's having problems getting people to understand why terms is the best option. Do you have any suggestions to do so?
Yeah, read my scripts. Okay? That's my script. That's my closing call script. It's right in there. All the reasons why terms would be work for them. Let's go right down the line. And that's all you can do. And if they still don't want to do it, quit worrying about it. You didn't do anything wrong. You just got the wrong person on the other end. That's what scripts do. They screen them out quickly. It's not your fault. And frankly, most of them are going to be screened out. You know, you're looking for the few that pass that test. When you get past the closing call script, if they're not interested, you're done. Okay, you're just done. I mean, this shouldn't take more than 2 minutes on the telephone. And that's what most of them take, right? Adel,
Yes,
you're on the phone with
Yep.
them every day. Screen them out quickly. Not too quickly, though. Be careful, because first of all, you might look for something on your property information sheet that the VA wrote that scares you, that convinces you they're not going to take terms, so you don't call them. Don't look for reasons not to call them. Call all of them, and you'll be surprised how many of them will talk to you totally different than what you thought they had on that property information sheet. And so the script, I don't know if you got the closing call script or not. That's on the Closers Club, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
sir.
on the $59 Closers Club. All my agreements are on the $59 level of the Closers Club. And the scripts are there as well. It's called a what is it called? A closing script?
Closing call script. Yes,
Closing
sir.
call script,
Yes, sir.
yeah. Goes like, listen, sometimes we buy it for cash, and sometimes we make your payments until your debt is paid off in the future. Of course, the cash price is going to be much lower than the terms price. So do you have to have all your money out of their house the day you close it, or will you listen to a better option that'll get you more money? Okay. If they say, I got to have all my money, you're done. You ain't even on there 2 minutes. You're on there a few seconds. And that's the purpose of the scripts. Now, if they say, well, I'll listen. If you go look at the script, there's a whole bunch of goodies for them. There's no, we pay most of the closing costs. You can take what you want, leave what you want. You can even be in the house for a little while after we close if you like. Some people need time to move, not a problem with me, and on and on and on. So you go down the list of benefits, and at the end it asks, is that something you would consider? And if the answer is yes, you go right to the appointment script and make an appointment to go to the house. So simple, but it's all about you learning to handle that call. The two biggest things that you need to conquer in this business is generating leads and then handle a closing call. When you master both of those, man, the rest of this is easy. The rest of it is easy. And the only way you're going to master the closing call is to, there's a list of my 14 mistakes people make on the phone. I believe they're on the Closers Club as well, okay? And when you make your calls, record them, must record them. And then when you play them back, you have the 14 mistake sheet right in front of you. And I promise you, some of those mistakes apply to your call. You cannot determine what mistakes you're making while you're making the call. You got to play it back with a barf bag right there. You'll see how crappy you are on the phone. Look, you suck. Everybody sucks. That'll suck big time, right? It's only a matter of practicing, but it's not just what to say, but how you say it. For example, one of the questions are, we usually buy with nothing down, okay? Okay, that's not the same question as, will you sell to me with nothing down? Please, 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 please. The way you ask it and the word for word, I promise you get in the habit of just doing that. We usually buy with nothing down, okay? You're gonna be shocked at how many people say, okay. And then you shut the hell up and go to the next question, okay? We don't have to justify anything we haven't asked. If they don't ask the question, you don't answer the question, all right? Okay, shut up. That's a hard one to learn right there. It's one of the 14. You talk too much, and sometimes you talk too fast, and sometimes I don't know if you come from another country, you don't have fluent English. If you don't have fluent English, you shouldn't be on the phone because it's hard to get people to deal with you when they can't even understand what you're saying. But the big one is you beg. Yes, you do. You beg. We all begged until you train yourself not to beg. So if you get that list, practice, record some calls. I tell everybody at the boot camp, we go home and practice 25 times with somebody else before we get to the sellers, but you're fixing one of these mistakes that you're making right along the way. One of them is the ums and the ahs and the you-knows. It drives me nuts, okay? Watching television, these so-called professional heads that are talking, some of them have got the ums and the ahs and the you-knows and don't even know it. So anyway, practice on that. You'll get a lot better on the phone. So all you got left to do is generate some leads, and there's plenty of training we're offering you on that. When you come to the Quick Start School at the end of June, I hope. I mean, we go the whole half of the first day is all on that, just generating leads. I forgot what the question was now.
You answered it.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir. All right, Adam in Nebraska. If we get and confirm a no lead for terms, but find the sellers motivated to sell for cash, and we can get a big, and we can't get a big discount on the purchase price, is it possible with a straight option to get the property in the MLS? What are your thoughts here? I guess he's asking, can you wholesale if you can't get a big discount?
Oh, sounds like wholesaling is out. Sounds like he owes more than, remember, when you wholesale, you're agreeing to buy it for cash, and then you're going to sell that contract to someone else for more. Your purchase price has got to be very low, or you're not going to make that work. Okay, sounds like your debt is too high, so immediately wholesaling is out of the question. All right. Now, can you option it if the seller will let you? And if the house is in good shape, and frankly, if it's vacant, because it's going to be hard to show if it's not vacant, and most of them are not. Of course, they're living in it. So that's probably going to discount a plan for you to option it and then sell the option or sell the house. But then you got to know how to handle that, because if you're going to sell the house, then you got to have the seller deed it to the buyer, because your contract, your contract don't count when you're selling it on an option. The seller deeds it directly to the buyer, and that's a few steps involved in that, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
All right, last one from Aaron in Michigan. Last week there were a couple land trust questions, and you said regarding your homestead property to not put an LLC as the trustee because that could trigger some tax issues. So who do I put as a trustee on my homestead?
Oh no, I didn't. I said do put your LLC as the trustee, but don't make them the owner of the property. All my houses have an LLC as trustee, including the one I live in. So you misheard that, or I misspoke, one of the two. Probably you misheard it. Okay. Beneficiary on your home is going to be you and your spouse, and that depends on what state you're in. Find out if you're in a tenants by the entirety state. And you can ask Google what states are honor tenants by the entirety, and they'll give you the whole list. They didn't tell me what state, did they?
This one says in Michigan.
I don't know about Michigan. If you are in tenants by the entirety state, then you always want to buy stuff tenants by the entirety, which means 100% ownership undivided, and that's the key, and that's what keeps predators from coming in and getting your asset, because if you own it jointly, undivided, they can't touch it. Now, that's assuming they're not getting a judgment against you and your spouse, but only one of you. That's a very, very good asset protection device, and I can tell you, I'm living proof of that. But I don't know if Michigan's in that group or not. I don't have them in front of me right now, but if you ask it, Google will tell you. Now, there's some states where tenants by the entirety will only work on real estate, and I can't tell you which states they are. Florida, tenants by the entirety is beautiful. Okay, saved my bacon many, many times.
All right, that's our last question.
Well, in that light, on the Closers Club site, even at the $59 level, you will find a whole course on land trust for free. Just download it, go to the search box and put land trust up there and watch what happens. Comes a bunch of stuff, okay? The same thing is true about entity structuring, asset protection. There's a lesson on there called 4 LLCs. Please, all of you, go listen to that. Then you'll understand what entities you need and why you need them. And I don't want you to go forming entities when you don't even know why you're forming them for sure, okay? So listen to that lesson. There's a wealth of information on the Closers Club. How do they get information on the Closers Club?
Yeah, it's reclosersclub.com.
Closers Club. $59 lousy a month. That's about a pack of cigarettes a day, ain't it?
We're probably close.
That ain't much. All that information, all my forms and agreements, for crying out loud. If you're not on it, if you're watching this, that means you're in the Gold Club, so you're probably already on it. But if you're not, then get on it right away. That's a must-have. Just a wealth of information.
Yes, sir.
Endless lessons on there that I've recorded. These questions and answers are all on there. Our archives are enormous because we've had the Gold Club now, I don't even know, about 15 years now. So we've converted it to the Closers Club. 3 levels. There's 59, there's 297, and there's 697. Go on there and it'll explain everything on those, and you'll find all of them are a huge bargain and a must if you're going to operate a business of buying houses. All right. Any more?
That's it.
Okay. Well, okay, so I guess I'll see you next week. Here we are almost in June already, so maybe we better get to work here. What do you think? We're running out of year. See you next week.
All right.